On the afternoon of July 15, 2020, the most powerful accounts on the internet all started saying the same strange thing. A former president. The world's richest men. Global companies followed by hundreds of millions of people. Within minutes of each other, they posted a nearly identical message. Send me Bitcoin and I'll send you back double. It looked impossible. These were verified accounts, protected by every security measure money could buy. And yet, someone was clearly inside all of them at once. Investigators would soon learn the truth was stranger than a genius breaking the code. The attack didn't begin with software, it began with a phone call. This is the story of the great Twitter hack. Over roughly 2 hours, about 130 high-profile accounts were taken over. The list read like a who's who of the planet. A former US president, a sitting presidential candidate, the world's most famous tech billionaires, and major companies like Apple and Uber. Every hijacked account posted the same trick, a classic scam dressed in famous clothing. Send Bitcoin to this address, and you'll get twice as much back. It's a lie as old as the internet. But coming from trusted, verified accounts, it worked. Before the messages could be scrubbed, more than $100,000 in Bitcoin flowed into the attackers' wallets from people all over the world. Behind the scenes, the company did something drastic. To stop the damage, it temporarily froze the ability of every verified account on the platform to post. For a few strange hours, the blue-check internet went silent. Here's the first twist. The Bitcoin scam, the part the whole world saw, may not have been the real point. According to reporting and later investigations, the operation grew out of something much smaller and stranger, the world of rare usernames. There's an online subculture built around buying, selling, and stealing short, original social media handles, a single word, or even a single character. To collectors, these are status symbols that can trade for thousands of dollars. Investigators traced the early activity to that community, where the attackers first used their access to grab and trade prized handles. Only later did they point the same power at a far bigger target, hijacking the most famous accounts on Earth to run a cryptocurrency scam. In other words, a breach that could have shaken markets or politics started, in part, as a fight over usernames. So how do you break into accounts protected by two-factor authentication and full-time security teams? You don't, at least not with code. You break into the people. This was the summer of 2020, and much of the company's staff was working from home during the pandemic. The attackers studied employees on public sites like LinkedIn, then simply picked up the phone and called them, pretending to be the company's own tech support. They claimed there was a problem with the internal VPN and steered workers to a fake login page that looked exactly like the real one. The moment an employee typed in their password, the attackers relayed it straight into the real system and then asked, helpfully, for the two-factor code as well. With enough of those calls, they reached employees who had access to a powerful internal dashboard, a tool that could change the settings on almost any account on the platform. From the outside, it looked like a godlike hack. On the inside, it was a help desk phone call and a convincing voice.
For all that power, the people behind it left a trail. Much of the early activity had played out inside that username trading community, where members bragged and traded access in the open. Security researchers and reporters connected the dots within days. And the money, the supposedly anonymous Bitcoin, turned out to be anything but invisible. Federal investigators, including the FBI, the IRS, and the Secret Service, followed the transactions and the digital breadcrumbs across accounts and chat logs. The evidence pointed somewhere almost no one expected. Not a foreign government. Not an elite criminal syndicate. The person prosecutors would call the mastermind was a teenager. On July 31, 2020, just over 2 weeks after the hack, authorities announced charges against 3 young men. A 19-year-old in the United Kingdom and a 22-year-old in Florida faced federal charges. But the alleged ringleader was Graham Ivan Clark, a 17-year-old from the Tampa, Florida area. Because of the scale of the fraud, Florida prosecutors charged him as an adult, on around 30 felony counts including organized fraud and identity theft. In March 2021,
Clark accepted a plea deal. Under Florida's youthful offender law, which limits sentences for offenders under 21, he was sentenced to 3 years in prison followed by 3 years of probation, far less than an adult conviction could have brought. He was released in early 2023. The investigation didn't stop there, it stretched across the Atlantic, with related arrests and extraditions in the years that followed. And this is why the Twitter hack still matters, years later. Strip away the celebrity names and the Bitcoin, and what's left is genuinely unsettling. A small group of young people, armed with little more than phone calls and confidence, briefly held the keys to some of the loudest megaphones on Earth. They chose to run a money scam. But the same access could have been used to move markets, spread panic, or post a fake message from a world leader at exactly the wrong moment. The most expensive security systems in the world were undone by the oldest trick there is, getting a human being to trust the wrong voice. The dark web, Silk Road, this hack, they all keep pointing to the same lesson. The weakest link in almost any system isn't the technology, it's us. At Shinwari Files, we follow the evidence, not the noise. New case files every week.